and I think it gets overlooked a lot. And I'm sure as a woman, you're probably very conscious about how male-centric this story is. But I have picked up on that through studying, is like how these, and just based off of the women I associate with and are close to me now, my wife included, other loved ones, that the personality of the woman, I mean, that personality dynamic between a male clan chief and his, she might be the dominant personality in that relationship. That's a very real, and we often don't have enough information to see that granular of detail in these cases. Go ahead. I can tell that's
No,
got some things
it's
going in your head.
I was talking to, well, I heard Jane Dawson give a paper on this recently. She's looking at Catherine, who was the wife of Glenorchy. And she said, I always thought she was the exception, and now I realize that she's the norm. And I've just written a piece on Agnes Campbell and her daughter Finola, who both end up over in Ulster, married to Irish lords, and trying to look at them and their behaviour. And yet, so the English contemporaries at the time were saying these are powerful women, these are educated women, they are this, that, and the other. And it's historians who cast them as, oh, they're just plotting, they're just, it's the machinations of their wives. It's more contemporary historians who have dismissed these women as they're not really part of the story. You sort of think, actually, yeah, let's just dial that back a little bit. Yeah. So no, I'll stop there. But yeah, sometimes it absolutely does depend on who you're married to, who your children are, where they are. And that's important. That's absolutely important.
Yeah. In fact, when you were explaining that, my mind, like, that's how the whole, like, the first record of the Gallaglass was a marriage, and she
Yeah.
brought with her a bunch of, it's really interesting. Maybe something, and I'm as guilty as anybody. I haven't looked into that to the depth that there is there to look into. But I wish we could learn who these women were, like what were their personalities like, what were they coming from and bringing to the table, and kind of influence did they have over their husbands.
But you're not guilty of that, Clint, because there's so little evidence. I mean, the thing is, we have the evidence for Agnes and Fino because they're in Ireland, and the English are writing everything down because they're sending it back to London.
Right.
In Scotland, we just don't have that evidence. We really don't.
That contrast between the amount of evidence we have in Ireland and the amount of evidence we have in Scotland, and I don't know why, because we, reading Michael Newton's work, I'm impressed by the degree of cultural continuity between Gaelic Ireland and Scotland. And yet at the same time in Scotland, like at the same time that the Irish annals are being written, we have, and I'm not sure the pronunciation on his name, the Agavnan, his writings, but really he's there doesn't seem to be, like, a lot of the Scottish history that I write of that time period, 7, 8, 900s, before you get to the Canmore dynasty, we're turning around and looking at Irish annals, and I think we're able to see their, because they have such good documentation, we're able to see their kin groups, the history of them go back so much farther. And this wasn't something I'd meant to get into talking about you with, but it just came up as we're talking about that contrast, is these Scottish kin groups, these Scottish clans, we have most of them not farther back than the 1100s.
Yeah.
But some of these Irish kindreds, they go back,
yeah,
200 or 300 years or more before that. But I can't help but think, and the more I read this, the more I think this, that these clans that we would recognize their names today, like Grant, like McIntosh, McPherson, like Mackenzie, I can't help but think that they're coming out of early kin groups earlier, but we don't have the name of what that group was called, like we do in some of their counterparts in Ireland. But they're coming out of already established and powerful kin groups. Ferchar MacIntaggart would be an example of that. He's already, when he comes on the historical record, he can already command a sizable group of people. He had a very strong kin base, and he begets the Rosses, and maybe is tied in with a few other clans, but earlier than him, we just don't have anything.
No, it's true. We have the occasional life of saints. We have some abbots keeping manuscripts, but we don't have anything that resembles the annals, and so apart from the documentation, which really only starts to pick up in the 15th century. There's more. There's a lot of charter evidence much earlier than that, but yeah, it's much more patchy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But in my period, the 16th, 17th century, we have so much more in Ireland because literally the English are there writing it all down to send it back to London. You know, they're just report of report of report. We don't have that going on in Scotland. There's some ambassadorial reports, but not to the same extent.
Unfortunately.